Berachot Haba'ot, welcome everybody. So today we're going to answer, maybe an answer to a very interesting question. When is midnight? And it's not so pashut. It's not so simple. It's not like when the two hands are pointing to the 12. But we're going to
tea on midnight. It says
Pardon?
midnight.
I left the tea out.
Yeah.
Well, that's even better. Well, let's put that in here for the purpose of the video, because somebody's going to wonder, can you spell? Right? Okay. Thank you. Okay. So before we do that, we left a little bit of a question last time, where the Gemara asks why, in the continuation of this discussion, remember. The Mishnah, the way we have it, is broken up into sections, which makes it manageable to learn the Mishnah and then the Gemara. But originally, each chapter, each paragraph was one long Mishnah. So the way that it was set up, originally, it would have been one long Mishnah. And so what they're going to ask is, why is it that we start out by saying from when do we start saying Kriya Shema in the evening, right? And the Amosai Koranis Shema Arvin. And then later on, and we're going to get to that right away, which is on page, if you're doing it in the Hebrew part, it's Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. And if you're in the English, I think it's page 73 in Mendel's book. Turn to page 73 there in the English. And it's actually 11a in the Gemara. And when they are describing the brachos that are involved with Kriya Shema, it discusses the ones for the morning first. So the Gemara says we started out asking what time do we start saying Kriya Shema at night. Then why do you go to discuss the morning before the evening, right? And so the Gemara says over there, or the Mishnah says over there, B'shachar mevorach shtayim ufaneha v'achas lachareha. In the morning, we make two brachos before Kriya Shema, and we'll get to that right away, and one afterwards. Ube'erev mevorach shtayim ufaneha v'shtayim lachareha. But in the evening, we do 2 and 2. So what are those? So if you turn to your siddur on page 88 in the siddur. So this is the lead up, the introduction to Kriya Shema in the morning. Okay, and right in the middle of the page, there's one bracha, one blessing. It says, Baruch atah Hashem Yotzei HaMa'orot, right? And then we turn the page, and then there's another bracha. It says, Baruch atah Hashem Aboker Ba'amo Yisrael Ba'ahava. So that's 2 brachos. Now comes Shema. Then after the Kriya Shema, we follow along until we get just about to Shemona Esrei, and there's one bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Ga'al Yisrael. That's on page 96. So there are 2 brachas before, 1 bracha after, in the morning. And in the evening, if you turn to page 280, 259, 258, 259, you'll see that before Kriya Shema, it says, Baruch atah Hashem Amari Varavim. That's right in the beginning of the second line of 258. And then right underneath it, it says, Baruch atah Hashem Ohev Amo Yisrael. So that's the second bracha. And then after Kriya Shema, in the evening, we have 2 more. And they are Ga'al Yisrael, which is on page 262. And then we turn the page, Baruch atah Hashem Shomer Amo Yisrael La'ad. So it's 2 and 2. And then actually there's more material there, but that was added later, where it's after that second bracha, Shomer Amo Yisrael Ad, in Eretz Yisrael, that's where they say Shemona Esrei right then and there. And there's still some congregations outside of Eretz Yisrael that do not say the next part of it, because that was actually added in later because of the fact that in the evening sometimes it was hard for people to make it to shul on time. So Just like when you go to the theater, they don't start immediately at the time they give people a chance. So this was added in actually, so that the people who are having a hard time getting there on time, they have a little extra time. So that doesn't really count. So you have 2 before, 2 after in the evening, 2 before and 1 after in the morning. So I just wanted to show you what those are. Okay, so getting back to our situation. So we are on Daf Beis Amud Beis 2b, and we're a few lines from the bottom of that. So if you're doing the Hebrew part, it's about 6 or 7 lines, and it says the question is which, and if you're in the English, so again you're in 2b, just a few lines from the bottom. So we went through a whole list of different times that Kriya Shema could be said. So it started out with the idea that when the Kohanim came to eat the Truma. Then it talked about when a poor man eats his meal. Then it's when everybody else, normal, people who are not poor, whatever, when they eat their Shabbos meal. It's a whole list of different things. So the Gemara asks, well, you gave me all of these examples, but which one is really later, right? Hey minayim uchar, which one is later? Whether it's the meal of the poor man or the Kohanim coming in after when they're going to be able to eat the truma. So mistaber the ani uchar. So the Gemara says it's logical that the meal of the poor man should be later. Di amid ani mukdam, because if you're going to say that the poor man his meal is earlier, so then Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Eliezer said that they're both the same, right? Lav shmamino de ani muchar shmamino. So basically, if you look in the English one, there's a little chart on the bottom of the page that lists all the different positions, the different rabbis and their positions, what they have to say. Maybe you can just give it to us quickly, Mendel.
Like just
Who says what?
Okay, Rabbi Eliezer, okay. From the time when the day becomes sanctified on the eve of Shabbos, that's his opinion. His reasoning, night begins with sunset. Verse, and the sun sets refers to the beginning of sunset. Rabbi Yehoshua, he says, his opinion is from the time when the priests are eligible to eat their truma. Night begins with the appearance of stars. The verse, and the sun sets, refers to the end of sunset. Rabbi Meir, from when the priests immerse themselves in order to partake of their truma. He agrees with Rabbi Yehoshua, but advances the time by a few minutes. All right, Rabbi Hanina, from where the poor person enters to eat his bread with salt, and he rejects any connection between sunset and the recitation of Shema. The time of lying down is determined based solely on ordinary human activity. The last one is Rabbi Acha, let's see, from the time when most people enter to recline, agrees with Rabbi Hanina, but argues that the determination must be based on the general population rather than on the behavior of the poor.
Okay, so basically we've got 5 different opinions as to when it is. And so now, Omar le Rav Yehuda, so Rav Yehuda said, Halo kahanim miba'od yom heim tovlim. So Rav Yehuda said that from the time that the Kohanim immerse themselves, right? That's his opinion. Because if you have a situation where a Kohen has become tameh, ritually impure in some way, so he has to immerse in the mikvah, and then we said that he has to wait until it gets dark, right? That's right, because he's called a tavul yom. Tavul means tavul, he immersed himself, but the day must pass. But Rabbi Eliezer seems to be saying that it's from the time that the Kohen goes into the mikvah. But isn't that during the day, right? Because the mikvah is used during the day, except for only one exception,
Yeah.
which
The ladies.
you all know. I've never done that myself. I've never gone into the mikvah at night, but women do. But in general, so the Kohen is supposed to go and immerse himself in the mikvah during the day. So how can you say, Rabbi Eliezer, that immediately he can eat the truma because the day has not passed? So what he says, Rabbi Eliezer's opinion is that the Kohen immersed himself right at the time called Ben Hashmoshos, which we translate as the twilight, but that's not really what it is. It's between it's some period of time. It's a twilight zone, right? Between day and night, and so there's a question: how long is that period of time, right? So some people say. So here it says, Rabbi Meir said it's a long period of time, right? So, and yeah, so he says, Rabbi Yehuda, it was correct that he said to Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir, Hachikam Arle, so Rabbi Meir could respond back to Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda said to Rabbi Meir, listen, you're giving a long period of time. That means it's really daytime, not nighttime, when the Kohen can start eating the truma. That we know that's not really correct. So Rabbi Meir responds. He says, "Mi savris ana aben hashmoshes lidach ka'amina." Do you think, Rabbi Eliezer, that or Rabbi Yehuda, that I have the same opinion as you as to the length of time of ben hashmoshos? That's not so. He said, "Ana ben hashmoshos Rabbi Yossi ka'amina." My ben hashmoshos is like Rabbi Yossi. And who was Rabbi Yossi? Why is it so important that Rabbi Meir is quoting him? So, Tanya, we can pick on you. There's a little bit of a note there about Rabbi Yossi. You see it in the if you're in the English, and you can find it
Where?
on personalities. Rabbi Yossi.
Oh, well, you have it, and you read it.
Yeah. Oh, and it talks about who he was.
No.
And why he's important.
Oh, well.
You find it, Tanya?
No. Sorry.
Oh, maybe in the background section?
Background, right, Rabbi Yossi.
But I don't see it there. Maybe on the next page?
But there's personalities, I think he's listed.
We're D right with it.
Anyway, you got it? Okay, now we maybe can read it to us.
Rabbi Yossi, this is Rabbi Yossi ben Halachta, one of the greatest of the Tanaim. He lived in the generation prior to the redaction of the Mishnah, and the imprint of his teachings is evident throughout Tanaitic literature. His father, known as Abba Halachta, was also considered one of the great sages of his generation, and his family, according to one tradition, was descended from Yehonadav, son of Berachot, see Kings. Okay, I have to do that. In addition to studying with his father, Rabbi Yossi was an outstanding student of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yossi and his contemporaries, the other students of Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, formed the center of Talmudic creativity of that entire generation. In his halachic approach, as in his way of life, Rabbi Yossi was moderate. He refrained from taking extreme positions on halachic issues. Because of this moderation and the logic of his teachings, the halakha is ruled in accordance with his opinion in every instance of disagreement with his colleagues. A well-known principle in halakha is that Rabbi Yossi's opinions are based on sound reasoning, and therefore halakha is always in accordance with his opinion. In addition to being a great master of halakha, Rabbi Yossi was also famous for his piety. The Talmud relates many stories of his modesty, his humility, and his sanctity. It is related that Elijah the prophet would reveal himself to him every day, and several conversations between him and Elijah are related in the Talmud. Rabbi Yossi was apparently the primary teacher of a series of Berachot on the history of Jewish people, known as Seder Olam. For many years he lived in Tzipori, in the Galilee, and earned his living as a tanner. Many of the prominent sages of the following generation, including Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the redactor of the Mishnah, were his students, but his main students were his 5 sons, all of whom were sages in their generation. The most famous of them were Rabbi Eliezer, the son of Rabbi Yossi, one of the great masters of Agadah, and Rabbi Ishmael, the son of Rabbi Yossi.
Okay, so based on what Naomi just told us, Rabbi Yossi was the authority of the day, and Rabbi Meir is saying, I hear your opinion, Rabbi Yehuda, but I support what Rabbi Yossi says. And Rabbi Yossi said what? He says, I hold like Rabbi Yossi's opinion in terms of what is the length of time of this twilight, this Ben Hashmoshos. He's Ben Hashmoshos keheref ayin, like the blink of an eye.
Where are you? Why can't I find
What?
you in the Hebrew? I can't find you in the Hebrew. In the response,
So you we're at the end of Beis Amid Beis, the last line actually. You're at Beis Amid. I'll turn the page now.
yeah.
Look at the last line, right at the very bottom, right? He's Ben Hashmoshos keheref ayin. He's Zeh Nichnas Zeh Yotzei the Efshar La'amod Alav.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so he says this day enters, that day exits, and it's impossible to define it exactly when it is.
Great.
Okay, so now the Gemara continues. It says Kasha de Rabbi Meir ad Rabbi Meir. So we're on 3a,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So still in all, the opinions of Rabbi Meir appear to be contradictory. So the Gemara says Trei Tanoi Oliba de Rabbi Meir. So there are two opinions within the opinion of Rabbi Meir. So Kasha de Rabbi Eliezer, and also Rabbi Eliezer's opinions appear to be contradictory. We're not going to really spend a lot of time on them because Trei Tanoi Oliba de Rabbi Eliezer, and there are two opinions on what Rabbi Eliezer actually said. Or you could say Reish Alav Rabbi Eliezer. So maybe the first part of the Mishnah is not according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. But we've got 5 opinions already. That's probably enough before we go into all the permutations of the opinions. Okay, so we said Ad Soha Ashmora. Ashmora is is a watch that comes from the word shamor, not shumer, shamor, that a watch. And this is more or less, it's a military term, that the night is divided into several watches, several periods of time. So there's two opinions, whether there are 3 watches to the night, or 4 watches. So if it's 3 watches, each one's 4 hours, 4 watches, each one's 3 hours, right? So he says, "My kasava Rabbi Eliezer." What was Rabbi Eliezer's opinion? Ikasava sholosh mishmaros hava halayla. So if his opinion is that the night is divided up into 3 sections, 3 watches, and lema ad arba shalo. So then, why doesn't he just say until 4 hours? The time to say Kriya Shema is in the first watch of the night, which is 4 hours long. Why doesn't he just say that, right? Ikasavar arba mishmaros hava halayla. And if he says that there are 4 watches, the night is divided into 4 sections, let him say shalosh shows 3 hours, right? Each one is 3 hours long, right? La'olam kasavar shalosh mishmaros hava halayla. So the Gemara answers, we know that Rabbi Eliezer's opinion was that the night is divided into 3 sections. This is what he's trying to tell us. Dika mishmaros barakia, dika mishmaros ba'ara. There are watches above and watches below. In other words, the heavenly army and the terrestrial army. Each one of them observes the night 3 times, 3 watches at night, 3 watches at night above, and 3 watches below. The Sanya, we learned in a brisa, Rabbi Eliezer Amir, Shalosh Mishmaros Hava Halayla. The night is divided into 3 watches. While Kol Mishmar Mishmar Yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shoei Ka'ari. And at the end of each of these 3 watches, God Himself is sitting, and He roars like a lion. It's Shinamar, and he quotes a pasuk. This is from Koheles. He says, "Hashem Marom Yishag Milon Kocho Yitain Kolo Shaog Yishag Al Naveyu." That Hashem is sitting above, and in His holy location, and He gives His voice a great roar. For Simon Ladavar, and a mnemonic that we can use to remember it. Mishmar Rishona So the first, how do we know? Don't forget, they didn't have wristwatches like we do, right? They didn't have the type of clocks. They had, I guess, sundials. So during the day, it was not too hard to determine what time was noon, right? If you had the sundial set up just right, when everything lined up, you knew it was noon. But how would you know what part of the night you actually are in? You wake up and you look around, what time is it? There's no clock by your bed. So how do you know? So the first one is Mishmar Rishona Chamor Noer. Apparently, donkeys are still braying on the first 4 hours. Shnia Klovim Soakim. The second one, the dogs are barking. Shlish is the third one. Maybe this is going to be familiar to everybody. Tinok Yonek Mishte Imo. The baby is nursing from its mother. The Isha Misaberes Simbala, and couples are talking, right? The wife is talking to the husband. So 4 o'clock in the morning, if you have something to say to your husband, you have a good source for it here, because the Gemara said that's normal. That's what people do. Okay, so Micah Shacha Chashav Rabbi Eliezer. What was Rabbi Eliezer's thinking? Itechilas Mishmaros Kachashiv. So what was he thinking? So the night, okay, so it's divided into three watches. Does he think that, is he talking about the beginning of the watch or the end of the watch? Or maybe the middle of the watch? So he says, Techila Mishmaros Rishona Simona Lamali. If he's saying that there are indicators of when each of these watches takes place, if he's talking about the first one, well, what does it look like at the beginning of the first watch? It's still daylight, right? He says, Ortanu, it's still day. Isof Mishmaros Kachashiv, if he's talking about the end of each of these watches, Sof Mishmar Acharona Lamali Simona. Why do I need an indicator of when is the end of the third watch of the night? Because what does it look like at that point? Yamamahu, it's daytime, it's daylight now, right? So Ella Chashiv Sof Mishmar Rishona Techilas Mishmar Acharona. So he's talking about the end of the first watch, the beginning of the last watch, and in the middle of the middle one. Okay, so now we come to our question. How do we know when it is midnight? Chatzos, right? Chatzos that's supposed to be the latest that you can say Kriya Shema, right? We learned that last time. Even though that's really a what they call a geder, a fence, it's a protection, because really you could say it up until daybreak, right? Because of the story with the boys that came back from the wedding, and the father said to them, listen guys, you can stay all night still, but we say until midnight. But when is midnight? So first of all, we need to know how long is each hour at night, right? Because we don't have 60-minute hours, we have halachic hours, right? So if sunset, I don't know, what time is sun down around here now, right? What time does it get dark?
Well, we lit candles at 5:22.
Okay, and Shabbos ended
At 6:30. At
6:30, okay? So 6:30, that's the beginning of the night, right? Okay, and what time is daybreak? Anybody?
7:10.
7:10. Okay. So, well, what time can you put the tefillin on? I don't know. We have an early minion here, which is about 6:40.
6:45.
6:48, I think it is.
So right now we're almost perfect, right? Because we've gone from 6:30 to 6:48, so it's almost a perfect division of the day. But that doesn't happen all the time, right?
No.
So in the summertime, we could have Shabbos ending 8 o'clock, right?
Yep.
And dawn could be earlier than it is. So you might have 10 hours. We have almost exactly 12 hours right now. But suppose it's 10 hours. So if it's 10 hours, what do we do? How do we decide, how would we divide up that 10-hour period according to who we're talking about? Now, we're talking Rabbi Eliezer. How would we divide it? So what we would do, first of all, is we would count up how many minutes there are. So 10 hours, there's 600 minutes. And we divide that by 12. So we get a 50-minute hour.
Oh. So
Right.
4 50-minute hours is the
So
shiur is the first watch.
Right, each watch now is 4 times 50. So it's 200 minutes. So each watch is 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Mm.
Right? So that means that midnight would be 320 plus another 100, right? So it'd be 420 minutes into the night would
So
be
it's 600 divided by 12.
600 divided by 12 is 50, right? So exactly midnight would be 300 minutes, right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, but I mean that would be if we could tell. I mean, they didn't have the kind of watches that we have, right?
We're going by cyclical chavim.
So, well, that's okay at nightfall. We can pretty much agree what time is nightfall, or when nightfall happens. We may not know what it says on the clock because we didn't have a clock, right? We didn't have clocks back then. But nightfall, so let's say in the summertime, let's make it 8 o'clock. That's nightfall.
Stars here, because it was a cloudy night, how would you see this?
And then daybreak is going to be, let's say, 6 o'clock. Make it easy. It's dawn. So we have 10 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
10 hours divided by 12, right, is equals 50 minutes per hour. Right?
Missed a couple steps in there, but yeah.
Fine.
So you skipped a couple steps, but yeah, that's what you get.
No, 8 o'clock at night gives you 4 hours until midnight. It gives you 4 hours until midnight, and another 6.
Right, but we're not thinking, but we don't think about midnight.
Regular midnight, okay, I got you.
Still,
Right,
you
'cause
still can't do that.
Yeah, you can, because, yes, I see,
Am I
so,
making sense?
yes,
Yeah,
so,
but
so,
without a clock, how do you do that anyhow?
Right. So nobody had a Rolex back then, but they didn't have clocks. So that's what I say. It's very difficult to know when exactly is midnight. So we can approximate it because again, how long of a period of time is that moment, right? That's why they say that we're living in the past, really. Because by the time we realize what time it is, that time is already gone. So it's very difficult to say exactly when the time is. But in this case, just to make it simple, so we come out with a 15-minute hour. 6 of those is 300 minutes, right? And so then we have, so midnight really would be what? If it was, so it would be five hours later. So midnight would be 1 o'clock in the morning,
1 a.m.
right? Right?
Yeah, if night began at 8 and ended at 6, then midnight would be 1 a.m. according to that formula.
Well, yeah, this is
And it changes all the time, so midnight is never the same time.
Chatzot is never the same time.
exactly
Chatzot
right.
is never the same time, right?
So, I mean, what happens at the equinox, right? That's when the Aztec temples had all their sundials all lined up.
Yeah.
But the point is that the times. So we're trying to establish what was his opinion. So is he talking about the beginning of the first one, the end of the last one? Now we're at the point where he's saying in the middle of the middle one, right? So he says, so Ella Choshev Sof Mishmar Rishona, Techilas Mishmar Achrona, then so Isa, Isa. So he's counting his calculation from the beginning of the first one, the end of the last one, and the middle of the middle one. Right? And that's how you get halachic midnight. Okay? Viboy Esema, or you could say, Kulu Sof Mishmaros Kachashiv. No. He's thinking only about the end point. So it's 4, 8, 12, right? Okay? And he says, V'chitema Acharona lo tzarech. You're going to tell me you don't need really the indicator at the end because l'may nafkamina, what difference it make? L'mikri kriya shma l'man the gani bebeis afel. So, why do we need to talk about the end point? Because suppose somebody wakes up in a dark room, right? And he has dark shades, maybe there are no windows at all in the room, it's dark in there. He doesn't really know. He doesn't know what time to say Kriya Shema. So maybe, I don't know, maybe he took a little nap and all of a sudden he wakes up, it's dark. Is it too late to say Shema? And he doesn't know, he doesn't have a watch on, right? So Kivan the Isha Masaparasim Bala, Vatino Yonik Mishtei Imo, he says, as long as we're still in the position that the woman is talking to her husband and the baby is nursing, Leikum Valikri, get up and say Kriya Shema. Because it's still, the day has not broken yet. It's still, you still can say, right?
No baby, no wife, what happened?
What? No baby, no wife. Get a baby, get a wife. Low tov, hey, it's not good.
That's why they need a wife.
Just to know what time it is.
To let you know, get up and go to shul, right? Or get up and say Kriya Shema. Maybe that's what she's telling him. She's telling him it's time to say, okay. Amar of Yitzchak bar Shmuel Mishmei de Rav. So Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel said, name of Rav, Shalosh Mishmaros Havi Halayla. There are 3 divisions, 3 watches of the night. I'll call Mishmar Yoshev HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'Shoei Ka'ari, and at each of these 3 watches, Hashem is sitting and he's roaring like a lion, B'Omer, and what does he say? Oh, Oy Labonim Shabavonosehem Echarafti Es Besi V'Sarafti Es Hecholi V'Glisim Lebein Umos Olam. He says, woe is it, it's sad for my children that because of their sins, I destroyed my home, I destroyed the temple, I burned the sanctuary, and I exiled them among the nations of the world. Okay, Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yossi. So now we have a little story about Rabbi Yossi, right? So we said that Rabbi Yossi has encounters with Eliyahu Hanavi, and here we're going to have a little story about one of those encounters. One time I was walking on the road, so we just mentioned that Hashem is sad that Yerushalayim has been destroyed. So here we have a story about one of the ruins of Yerushalayim, which thank God you can't find too many of them anymore. It's all being built up. But anyway, he entered into one of these ruins to daven, right? Bo Eliyahu Zechor L'Tov v'Shamar li ala Pesach, and Eliyahu Hanavi came along and he guarded the doorway. V'himtin li ad shesiyamti tefilasi, and he waited until I finished davening. Right, very nice of him. La'achar shesiyamti tefilasi amar li, when I finished davening, Eliyahu said to me, Shalom Alecha Rabbi. He said, hello Rebbe, my Rebbe, right? Amarti lo, but I responded to him, Rabbi Yossi responded back, Shalom Alecha Rabbi Umori. He said, greetings to you, my Rebbe and my teacher, right? Amar li, and Eliyahu said to me, B'ni, b'pnei ma nechnasta l'chur basu. Why did you enter into this ruined building? Amarti lo, l'spalel. I said it was time to daven, and I went inside that building to daven. Amar li, and he said to me, you should have just davened along the way. You shouldn't have gone into this building. Amarti lo, and I said back to him, Yori hayisi shema yafsiku bi over drachim. He said, I was concerned. I'm gonna like stand on the side of the road and daven. People are going to come by, they're going to disturb me, and I won't be able to have the proper intent of davening. Therefore, I went inside the building. Amar li, but he said to me, so there is a version of the Shemona Esrei, a short version, and that is the one, says Eliyahu, you should have used. I understand that you're concerned people are going to disturb you during your davening, you wouldn't have proper kavanah, proper intent. So say the short Shemona Esrei. Okay? So it says Rabbi Yossi, at that moment, in that instance, I learned from Eliyahu 3 lessons. First of all, by his question, I learned you should not go in there. There's reasons why you should not enter into that. And I learned that even when you're on the way, it's okay to daven. And I learned that if you are in the situation where you are going to be davening on the road, say the shorter version of the Shemona Esrei. V'amar li, and further Eliyahu said to him, B'ni, son, ma kol shamata b'chur vazu. What sound, what voice did you hear in that ruined building? Amarti lo, shamati bas kol shemanahemes kayona v'omeres, and I heard a heavenly voice that was cooing like a dove, and it said, Oila bonim shavonoseim echarati es basi, v'sarafti es hecholi, v'glisim lebein ha'umos. Woe is it to the nation, to my children, that because of their sins I destroyed my house, the temple, the Beis HaMikdash, I burned the sanctuary, the Heichal, and I exiled them among the nations. V'amar li, further, he said to me, Chayecha v'chaye roshcha, he said, your life and the light on your head, lo sha'azu b'vado meres chach. He says, not just the moment you happen to be in there is this voice heard in that churba, ela b'chol yom v'yom, sholosh pamim omeres chach. Every day, this is said 3 times. V'lo zu b'vad, and not only that, ela b'shah she'Yisrael nechnasim lebate k'neisios, lebate midrashos, v'onin, and when people come into shul, and in davening, they answer Yehei Shmei HaGadol Mevorach. So that sounds like something we say, right? So what we say in Aramaic, because our Kaddish is in Aramaic, so we say Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach. So we say, so HaGadol and Rabba, Rabba is Gadol for in Aramaic. So we say Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevorach, right? When somebody's saying Kaddish, that's our response. So at that time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Menanea Rosho V'Omer, and at that time, God himself, so to say, nods his head and he says, Ashrei HaMelech shemekalsenoso v'veso kach. So a king who is greeted this way in his home, Ma'alo la'av shehiglo es banav, v'oilem labanim shegalo me'al shulchan avehim. And he said, it's a sad situation that a father has to send away his son and for children to not be able to eat at the table of their father. Continuing on this discussion about the incident with the ruin that he walked into, there are 3 reasons why you should not enter. So Eliyahu said you shouldn't go in there, and so Rabbi Yossi learned the lesson, you shouldn't go in there, but why not? What's the problem? Why should you not enter into an abandoned building or a destroyed building? He said, because first of all, and because there were people, women of certain character were known to hang out in those places, and you shouldn't come out of there. People are going to wonder what you're doing in there, right? So there's, first of all, because you could be suspect. Second is because and the second is you go into a building that's in a ruined state, it could continue falling down on you. It could collapse on you. And third is mazikin. Mazikin are demons, right? So, and they are known to hang out in those places. Okay? So the Gemara continues, B'pnei Chashad. So wait a second. Why do we have to have all these three possible outcomes to prevent a person from going there? So let's not talk about the suspicious part of the suspect. Just say v'tepek le'mishum polis. Just say because the building could collapse on you. That should be enough of a reason not to go in there, right? Why do you have to bring in these other things? So the Gemara says v'chadati. It's a new one. It's a building that's recently fallen into disrepair, and we're not concerned that it's going to collapse on you. So that wouldn't be enough of a reason. Okay. So v'tepek le'mishum mazikin, and maybe just say because there might be demons in there. So the Gemara says betray means with two. So it was known by them that the demons didn't bother people when two of them went in. One person alone could be affected, but two were not. So this way, go in with a partner, you don't have to worry about that. So betray chashad nami leka. So okay, so we're going to say two people coming in alone. There was no suspicion either, because the Gemara says that two men walking into a place where these women might congregate, might be there. Two men together, you don't have to worry that they would have gotten involved with this woman. Okay, betray, befritzi, and they say that two people, but these people are well known to be a bad character. Okay, so mipnei hamapolis. So now we're talking about the fact that the building could collapse. So you can leave out the mapolis, the collapsing, because just say because of the suspicion or because of the demons. It says betray the kashri. So we're talking about two people who were good character. So in that case, you don't have to be concerned about that. So mepnei hamazikin. So why do you have to talk about the demons? Just tepek le'mipnei hashad mapolis. Just say that you're concerned about the suspicion or of the fact that it could fall down. Is bechur b'chadati betray kashri. So that's why he says we need all three of these possible reasons, because each one might apply to different cases. So betray, and if only but two, mazikin nami leka. There's no demons in a place where they're not affecting two people. It's the makom and chashina, where they are accustomed to be. We still have to be concerned about that. So, and we're talking about a situation where it was one person that's entering, and it is a new building that has recently collapsed, and therefore we have to be concerned. The hasam mishum chashad leka, because we're not worried about the suspicion, because this building is located all by itself out in a field, far away from the settled area, and these women didn't go to that place. You wouldn't find too many women out there. But in this building far away from the city, you could have demons located in there. Okay, so we still didn't really get into the issue of whether there are 3 watches or 4 watches, but we will continue with that fascinating topic, God willing, next week.
I keep saying this and I'm not sure what it means. Aleph, Bet, Sarai, Aleph, and you went over, you said something, but I don't know what.
What was the word?
Aleph, Bet, it's a Shetevot. Aleph, Bet,
Right.
then like question mark, like
Aleph Bet or Aleph Chaf?
no, is it a Chaf? Is it a Chaf or a Bet?
If it's a Chaf, it would be in Cain.
No, but it's
If
Aleph,
so.
Bet, Aleph. Le'olam b'chad. I don't know what it means. I'm on. I don't know where I am. I'm on Gimel, the second page.
So it could be what Becky said, why you're saying if you could say, do you have it? Maybe stop the camera.